So we have seen loops, and then we have seen scope of variable. Now what we are going to look at is something called control flow keywords, which is a return, break, and continue. So they are basically used to stop or restart loops. And the best way to understand is to look at the program directly before we get into the concepts. So let's get into the program like we always do before we explain how it is. So we will see how it works and then we will discuss the topics. So we have a small program here. Although the file has so many different programs, let's focus on this small program. Essentially, it has only 3 lines or 4 lines max. It is a very familiar for loop. It is starting with a very familiar for loop. So it is going to count 1 to 10. So the 0 is implicit in this case. We can put 0 here like so. And if the count equal to 7, if the count is 7, so let me put a bracket here as well. Without the bracket also it works. That is another way to write if condition. You will see that when we review the code a lot, but for the time being I'm using this particular syntax just to be uniform. So this is the looping part, and if the count equal to 7, so we have an if condition here. We are doing this. We have a print statement. So let me make this print statement pretty simple. So I made the print statement pretty simple. There was a very verbose multi-line print statement. I don't want to confuse with such a print statement. So I have made it a little less complicated print statement. So if this condition is true, if the count is 7, we are printing this. And then we have something called break here. Break is a keyword. This is what we are learning, break. So this is a new thing. So line number 5 is a highlight here. So break. What this means is that break from the loop. So if you don't break, what it'll do is the count will become 8 and then 9. That is not going to happen here. So once the count is 7, it'll execute this print statement and then break the loop. And this is part of the loop. So this statement is part of the loop. And this is printing all the count. So as you can see here, the count is a integer. So we need to convert it into a string so that this will work. That is this str is doing. So we'll see that. We'll remove the str and see how it works. Str is one of the built-in functions. So it takes something as input. It could be integer, it could be something else, something other than string. It takes and return a string. So we'll see it shortly how it works. But the focus here is not that. The focus here is the break, line number 5. That's what we are trying to learn. This print statement is part of the loop, not part of the if condition. So if condition is this block and the for loop is this block. So that's how it works. So let's see the execution before we get too much into the control flow part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a breakpoint here and I'm going to start the program. So as expected, so let me remove all this to avoid confusion. So count, we will keep the count. Although it is from the previous program, we will keep the count. So what is the first value of count? We know that already from the previous iterations of the loop. We have studied that before. If you have any confusion, go back and revisit those presentations. So the count is 0 right now. Now it didn't get into the if condition because this is false. Let's watch that. So right click, I selected it, right click, add to watch. So it is false. So count equal to 7. This is a false statement because count is 0. Now I'm keep executing the loop. I got a print statement here, not broken. So printing the count equal to 0. The count is 0. So the loop is not broken. The loop is not broken, so it is printing the count. If the loop is broken, if the loop is stopped by any means, this print will not get executed. So that's the idea. Now let's keep executing. Now the count is 1. Again, we have not got into the if condition. It is going to print 2. Next iteration 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got till 6. Now the interesting thing comes. So we have count equal to 7. That is true here. So what is going to happen? It is going to execute the if condition. The statements inside the if condition. It is going to execute those statements. In this case, it is going to print. So the print happened like so because the count is equal to 7, and then it is going to break. As you can see, the jump from break was once it is broken, it didn't print the 7. So it is broken out of the loop. It has prematurely ended the loop. The loop was supposed to run till 9. So this count would have come till 9. But when the count is equal to 7, we have broken the loop with a break keyword. Now, what would have happened if this break was not there? Let's see that. That's very important. What I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this line out and rerun the whole thing. So this is the rerun button. I'm going to restart the whole thing. And in this case, I'm going to print everything in one shot to save some time. If you want, you can jump through it. I have put a breakpoint here and I'm going to press this button. Let's look at the output. So till here, there is no confusion. We have seen this and we have seen this as well. But now in the previous iteration of the program, this statements were missing. So these things were not there in the previous one when the break was there. The reason is because once the break got executed, it broken out of the loop. So this loop has ended when the break happened. And these iterations were skipped. Let's see that once again. I'm going to reinstate the break and restart again. Same place the breakpoint, and it has not printed those extra lines, which is right here in the previous execution. So this is a previous execution. It's not there. So break is something which will break the loop. That's a highlight of the break. Now, one thing I would like to show you later is if you have a nested loop or a loop inside a loop, the break will break the immediate loop, which is executing, which means that if there is another for loop right here, and then inside that there is a for loop, which is this, the break will break from this for loop, not the outer one. We'll see that. I think there is an example coming up. If there is no example coming up, we'll write one by ourselves. Now let's see the similar thing in while loop. So again, while loop is here. Here, one other thing is I'm not going to add the brackets around the condition. So I want you to get familiar with this syntax as well of the while. The only difference is that it is missing that bracket. This bracket is missing. I want you to get familiar with that syntax as well, which is kind of very Python-y syntax. C, C++, Java, C#, all those languages has a bracket here. They don't let you do this without the bracket, but Python does. I want you to get familiar with this syntax as well. So other than that, everything is exactly same. Same with the if. I'm not going to put bracket this time, but if you want, you can put the bracket. So it's a while loop. I equal to 5. There's a variable I. The initial value of I is 5. And then it is checking this condition. I is less than or equal to 15. So let's see that. Add to watch. So let me close this so that there is no confusion. So I less than or equal to 15 is true. So the loop is going to execute. This condition is true. The loop is going to execute and we are going to get I printed. So I is getting printed right in the bottom, which is 5. No surprise because we have assigned 5 to I and we have not changed it after that. Now this is another if condition. Again, the brackets are missing. If you are wondering why this is looking a little different, the brackets around this condition is missing, which is completely fine with Python. Now what is it checking? It is checking if I is greater than or equal to 9. So I'm adding that to the match as well. So that condition is false. I is not greater than or equal to 5. So in this case, if I is greater than or equal to 9, it'll break. Otherwise, I equal to I plus 1. I'm adding 1 to I. We have seen this line number 14 before when we discussed while loop. If you have any question, you can check that. This is also called incrementing the counter. So this is a counter. This is the counter which counts the loop execution. So I'm incrementing that counter here. So it didn't go into the if condition. So there is no break. Break has not executed. Coming back to the if condition, again going to print 6 this time. Again adding 1 to the existing value of I. So now the I became 7. Printed, coming back, going. So this program is essentially same as the previous one. It is just that it is the while loop. The logic is essentially same. The print is a little bit different. Right now the value of I is 9. This is exactly what we want. Greater than or equal to. That is a comparison which is done here. So if you look here, this is true, which means that the if condition will execute. So very important. Previously, this line number 13, was not getting executed. This is the first time this condition is getting true. Now what is expected to happen? Line number 14 will execute or not? Can you predict? I will let you pause the video and think for a bit before you answer it. The question is whether we are going to execute this or not. We are not going to execute that because the loop, it is part of the loop. This increment counter I equal to I plus 1 is part of the loop. This entire loop is gonna skip after the break statement. So this line is not going to get executed again. And the control will come right here in 17. So let's see that. That's exactly what happened. Skipped this particular line and the control or the execution came on line number 17. So to summarize the break is a way of getting out of the loop or stopping the loop at certain point. When some conditions are true like this, the break is executed here. Now, even if there is no if condition, if you have a break in a loop, the loop will end. So break means that end the loop. In the next session, we will see continue.